Hey, so throwback to the time we were originally supposed to review this in person together. No, but in all seriousness,
I
guys,
know.
we are back here once again to review the last thing that we were supposed to initially review together. And what, of course, is that, Allie?
We are going to be reviewing Hawkeye.
Yes. All right. So this show, the premise of it is pretty simplistic overall. You focus on Clint Barton after the events of Avengers Endgame. It roughly picks up 2 years afterwards, which is the longest time span we've had between any of these, really. And at this point, he kind of just wants to settle down. He doesn't really want to think about being an Avenger anymore, but he's pulled back into it by the emergence of a new Ronin, played by Kate Bishop, who seems to be very intrigued by him, and he has to try to do what he can to clear her name and also sort of deal with the sins of his past. So I was very interested in this show going into it, I will say. I wouldn't say I was like hyped out of my mind for this show, just because as much as I enjoy the Hawkeye character, no point of me in Avengers Endgame was like, oh my God, I really want to see like a whole TV series about him and things like that. I just didn't really know how that was really going to go. I didn't really know what the show was really going to be. But once we got like trailers and things like that, and this kind of looked more like a Christmas special of sorts, I thought overall this could be a lot of fun. And so I was really just pulling for this to be just kind of a fun sort of escapism. It seemed like one of the more lighter Marvel series than we've really gotten overall. But what did you think going into this one?
I was really excited going into this one. Well, obviously, I really enjoyed the other Marvel Disney shows.
Yes.
And I was just really excited to see this one. And also, being a big Hailee fan, I was excited to see how she would do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was just a really fun show. And I'm just really happy that I started watching.
Yeah, I have to say, pretty much from the beginning, this one from a show that I thought, oh, this could just be kind of fun, to actually be one of the best of the Marvel Disney Plus shows yet. I think Hawkeye is easily the most consistent in terms of entertainment. And while I don't think it's overall the best of the Disney Plus shows, I think overall it's definitely one of the better ones that they've done for sure. But we are just getting into right now. So when it comes down to this show, I think the most consistent element for me, amongst a bunch of things, is really the acting here. That's something that cannot be disputed. Both of these actors are really, I think, in top form in this show, and they really do make the show as good as it is. Turn your camera off, please, so I can add some photos. But we're going to, of course, start off talking about Jeremy Renner here, who, look, we've already seen him in this role a numerous amount of times, but we've never really gotten him to this extent. I think he's given really strong performances in films like Age of Ultron and especially Endgame. I was very impressed by him in both of those. But here we get the deepest exploration of this character again. Obviously, Renner has a lot more to deal with as a result, and surprisingly, a very subtle performance. This is a man who, like I said, doesn't really want to do this anymore, but he's constantly reminded of why he became this Avenger and kind of like reevaluating himself and also his past as the Ronin. And I think Renner does a really great job with that, while also settling into this new role as like this mentor towards Kate Bishop. I thought overall he just did such a great job here. Renner is a very likable, he's always been very likable as Hawkeye, but again, I feel like here we get the deepest exploration of Clint Barton. I just really loved what he ended up doing. I think he carried the show very nicely.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I thought he did really well in this show for sure. And
yes,
it was just really cool seeing. It was really cool seeing him like in his own series for sure.
Yeah, he did a really great job.
Like we got
but
to see,
I think
like we got to see more of. We got to see more of like his perspective in a way.
Yes, definitely. But I think really the star of this entire show, and really the thing everyone is going to be praising or has been praising, is Hailee Steinfeld. Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, which I will be honest, the second that she was announced to play this role, that's pretty much what got me on board with this show, because I think Steinfeld is one of the best of her kind. I think she just, anything that she's in, she brings so much charm, so much fun to the role, and she does such a great job as Kate Bishop here. Kate Bishop could be this character that's very one note. She's just trying to be like this imitation of Hawkeye, but no, she has her own sort of struggles that she's going with, and she wants to become, while she, idolizes Hawkeye in that way, she has her own reasons for becoming that way. And I really love what she ended up doing here. She was fun. She was kind of naive in a way, and she was very in over her head, but Steinfeld is just so fun to watch as this character, and I really love, again, what she ended up doing here. I think she provides some really nice, like, comedic one-liners and things like that, but also, really does serve as, I think, the true heart of the series. I really did love what she ended up doing in this show, and I think overall the show is very much worth watching, just for her performance alone.
Oh yeah, she definitely was the best part of this, and like I said, I'm a huge fan of her. So
oh yeah,
she brought a lot of passion to this character, and she honestly became one of my favorite MCU characters for sure. Like, I literally made my profile on Disney Plus her. And she's just so fun, so charming, so entertaining. And I just think like anything she does that I've seen her in, because obviously there's things I still have to see with her, but everything I've seen with her, she's like done such an amazing job, and she's one of the like best new actresses.
I think so too. I think anything she gets her hands on, she really just kills it. And I mean, what an amazing November that she ended up having. Like this, Arcane, last season of Dickinson. I still got to watch both of those, by the way, but she is just absolutely remarkable. And the chemistry between these. What?
I still need to watch Dickinson, but Arcane I need to finish.
Yes, the chemistry between these two is just so magnetic to watch. They bounce off each other so well. They have this sort of father-daughter type dynamic, and they work very well together. It starts off and it's very much like, they don't really want to work. They don't, he doesn't really want to work with her, but eventually grows to care about her. And I think their dynamic really, is the heart and soul of this entire show. I think they work so well together. You enjoy their chemistry. You like seeing them bounce off each other. And especially as the show goes on, the way they really do start to bring out the best each other. I think overall, both of them just really killed it in this role, to the point where I want to see more of this dynamic. I don't want this to be the last we see of Clint Barton and Kate Bishop. I hope we're able to see more of it moving forward, because they are just absolutely incredible here, and I think they carry this entire show.
Oh yeah, like their friendship in this is like definitely the heart, and I just loved it so much. I love their dynamic, and even if there's no season 2, they should have like some kind of spin-off.
Yeah, it'd be cool if like they get them back for like one of the movies or something. I'm not really sure what they're gonna do, but I think both of them were fantastic here overall when it comes to their dynamic in the show. I thought overall they did a great job with that.
They definitely need to be brought back for sure, because like we need more of it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, in terms of the rest of the cast, I think everyone does a really great job here. Someone I definitely want to talk about is someone I was not expecting to ever see in a Marvel show, and that's Tony Dalton. I was not expecting to see him pop up in something like this. The only thing, obviously, that I know him from is Better Call Saul, and he's very good here. He plays this mysterious character, Jack, and you don't entirely know what's going on with him, but I thought he played that role very nicely. And Vera Farmiga as well plays Kate's mom, and you can tell that there's some sort of secret that she's hiding. Both of them are very good in this show. I can't really say much more than that. We'll get more into it with spoilers, which we are going to talk spoilers for this show. Don't worry. Don't you worry. But I thought overall both of them were really good here.
Oh yeah, I thought they were really good. Like I'm mainly so used to seeing her in like The Conjuring and everything. That's like the main thing I've like seen her in, but like seeing her in like a Marvel show, it was just really cool and very different for her, and she did a great job, and then he did a great job too. Like just the dynamic, and their passion was just incredible to watch.
Yes, definitely. I thought both of them were very good in this show. But another big standout for me, I have to say, someone I've really never seen before, and that's Alaqua Cox, who plays seemingly our villain here of Echo, or Maya Lopez, who I thought was incredible in this show. I really, like I said, have not seen her much before. When it comes to villains in Marvel Disney Plus shows, I feel like they've kind of been 50-50 for me. But she's definitely one of the stronger ones that we've had. There's something that really drives this character. She has a reasoning for why she's doing what she's doing. And I think overall, you know, you really do end up latching onto it very nicely. Obviously, we don't get the deepest exploration of this character because she is going to be getting her own show, Echo. I don't know when that's going to be coming out. I assume sometime this year.
Exciting.
But what?
Oh, I was just saying that's exciting.
Yes, of what we get of this character, you know, just in this show, I'm already a really big fan of her, and I think Cox just does a really great job with this performance, and I really did love what she ended up doing here. She was definitely a big standout for me.
Oh yeah, I thought she was a great villain for sure, and like I've never heard of her before, so
No.
So she's very new to me, but like seeing her,
yeah, it's a great breakout performance.
Oh yeah, like I definitely want to see her in more Marvel stuff, and also maybe even other shows and movies as well. Like she could be like a really big star.
Oh yeah, I think definitely just from what she demonstrates here, I think she definitely has a very good ability when it comes to acting and things like. You can turn your camera on, by the way. She's a very good dynamic, you know, and I think overall I'm definitely excited to see what she does moving forward. As far as the rest of the cast goes, I think everyone else does a really great job. I love all three of the tracksuit guys we encounter here. Alexis Paunovic, Piotr, Adamczyk, and Fee. They're all a lot of fun to watch. I can't really get too much more into their characters, but they're very dim-witted. They say bro lot, and they're just a lot of fun to watch. I thought they served for some you know, really fun like comedic side villains that Marvel indulges in a lot, so I really enjoyed them. You know, there's some other actors that I really like, but the one that we have to talk about, obviously, because we knew that she was going to pop up in the show at some point. We can't really say too much of what she does, but Florence Pugh, of course, is back here as Yelena, who you know, best part of Black Widow for me, easily. I thought that she, similar to Kate, was just, you know, and it's interesting that she's in a show like Hawkeye, where I think Kate Bishop really does steal the show. She really stole the show from Black Widow in that movie. Although I think Hawkeye in the show has considerably more to do than Natasha did in Black Widow. But I think overall, she just does such a great job. You know, we already know the care that Yelena has for Natasha. We know her inclusion in the show, but they really do a lot of fun stuff with her here. When she eventually does get in, you know, she ends up being, I think, a big scene stealer in practically anything that she's in. I really liked what she ended up doing in the show. I can't say much more than that, but she gave a really strong emotional performance that I think really helped get you even more connected to this character, and really just made me hope that we get to see a lot more of her moving forward. Like, I really do hope that Yelena eventually becomes like one of the major characters of the MCU, because I think she just has so much potential, and I think the show really tapped into that very nicely.
Oh yeah. Ever since I first saw Black Widow in theater, I like adored her, and I thought she was truly the star. She was so funny. Like, her one-liners are great, and I was so excited to see her in this show. And
such a poser.
I think she's just like amazing. Like, she is very talented. She's a great actress, and she just has a lot of heart and passion. And I think she needs her own show or movie. Like, just call it Yelena.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited to see what else they do with her moving forward as a character. And I really did love what she ended up doing in the show. Overall, I think the acting is really great. You know, I always say this when it comes to Marvel. They most of the time are very good with casting everyone, and that really is no different here. Let's get into the directing for the show, because that was the thing that I was a little bit worried about heading into this. I thought it was just going to be a little light. There wasn't really going to be a lot going on tonally, but what I think works really well in the show, and I think you'll agree with me, is that this is probably the most simplistic Marvel show we've really had yet. And I think it's that much better because of it. There isn't a lot going on for a while narratively, other than, you know, Kate Bishop has set off this chain of events, and Clint Barton has to do what he can to really, you know, get her out of it. But then he's also just trying to get back home to his family for Christmas. And I think overall it's directed very well in that way. It's very light in terms of there's a lot of comedy throughout the show. And so, like I said, I think entertainment-wise, it's definitely the most consistent in terms of that. I was laughing a lot throughout the show. I had a big smile on my face throughout the show. And I think centering it around Christmas makes a lot of sense here, because, again, it's very joyous, very fun to watch, but in no way does the show undercut more emotional beats that are going on here. There's a lot going on in terms of PTSD. There's a lot going on in terms of regrets that Hawkeye has as a character. Like I said, there's a lot of naivety when it comes to Kate Bishop and what she's really doing. And I think overall, the show does a really good job of combining both the humor and the heart very nicely in this show. So I think overall, that's something that I was just very impressed by here. It's really cool to see a show that features characters that aren't these superhumans. They're mostly just normal people, and, you know, they carry arrows and things like that. And that's a lot of, it's very refreshing, I think, to watch, because we don't normally see that when we go into a Marvel show. It's normally, you know, a bunch of superhumans and doing all this crazy shit. And that's not the case in this show. This is a lot more grounded, and I think it's that much better because of it. So overall, I think in terms of directing, it's one of the most consistent, especially the episodes directed by Bert and Birdie. These two really do a great job, I think, like I said, when it comes to the fun of this show, but then also the emotional side. They understand both of those elements very well, and I think the show is that much better because of it. So overall, I think in terms of directing, you know, this is something I feel like a lot of these Marvel Disney Plus shows have struggled with, where they want to try to be big and grandiose. This show keeps things relatively simplistic, at least for a while, and I think that it's that much better because of it.
Oh yeah. I'm kind of echoing you there. The consistency was great. Yeah,
no pun
I really
intended,
like
just echo.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. It's just like a very simple action show. Nothing too crazy happens, obviously, but I like that. Because we don't need a show that's just completely over the top. No. Sometimes we just need like something like this, and
we don't always need a WandaVision or a Loki, like, you know.
Yeah, or Falcon the Winter Soldier.
Well, see, that's my thing. That's why I prefer this over Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I felt like Falcon and Winter Soldier was trying to do too much. This show understood its simplicity, and I think it's you know, that's why it works so well.
Yeah. But yeah, the directing was wonderful, and I think they just did a great job, and it was just a great show overall.
Yeah, definitely. Now, getting into the writing with this show, like I said, I think that's definitely something that they do a really good job with here, because for a while I saw a lot of people complaining about how, oh, this is really Kate Bishop's show, you know, Clint Barton is really taking a back seat. And I feel like that was kind of intentional. The show takes a lot of time to get you to know, you know, Kate Bishop as a character, to really establish who she is, what her mission is, what she's really fighting for, you know, why she's so obsessed with Hawkeye in that way, kind of connecting her to him in a very interesting way, which I was not expecting. And I thought they did a good job with that. But then gradually getting you more into, you know, Clint's side of things. He, like I said, is very traumatized by a lot of things that have happened when he was an Avenger. He's not an Avenger anymore, but he has very bad PTSD. He has a hearing aid now because of all of the loud noises and things like that. like I said, does not really want to have that notoriety. He doesn't really feel like it's deserving because of his past as Ronin. You know, he knows of a lot of the acts that he's had to commit. And while we definitely got a little bit of an understanding of it in Endgame, here we get a much more like deeper exploration, like I said, of this character and his plight and what he's not really just what he's gone through, but what he's done to other people, what that has the wounds that it's inflicted on others. And I think that is handled very well in the show. I think that they really did a great job of taking the character of Clint Barton and really making him that much more compelling overall. And I really did love to see that in the show. The way this show deals with grief, PTSD, things like that, I think all of that is really spot on. So I think you are just as attached to Clint's backstory, because I think that's something that people were worried about, that like Kate Bishop, like I said, was going to just like steal the spotlight and Clint wasn't going to have as much to do. But I felt like both of them equally had enough to do in this show. I know that recently there's been like deleted scenes that have come out, like, you know, detailing like Clint's backstory and things like that, showing his past. And obviously we don't get to see that in the show, but I still feel like at the end of the day, we got enough when it came to his character. And when pairing that with Kate Bishop, I thought overall worked very well here. What did you think of the writing with, you know, these two characters overall?
I really enjoyed the writing. They did a great job with it, and like I like that they had Clint's perspective and his point of view, and Kate's as well. Like they each had their story and like things that have been going through or have gone through, and like how he has PTSD now. And he's trying not to like be an Avenger and everything anymore. But yeah, I like that. I think they did really well with this writing, and it was very consistent and just very like real. Like I don't think anything needs to be changed. I think it was like perfectly written.
Yeah, I think overall the writing was very well done here. And like I said, the mission that these two are going on, it's not really anything that complicated. It's not like a world-ending disaster or anything like that. It really is something that's a little bit more personal for Clint. You understand why he's going along for the ride. Like I said before, he's just initially he's kind of just like disgruntled. He doesn't really want to be here, but gradually he starts to get more of a reason to care. And, you know, as the show goes on, the dynamic between these two really does start to change in a very meaningful way. And I think really just become one of the best parts of the show. But there's also a side mission going on with Kate Bishop, something that she's kind of suspicious of when it comes to her mom's new boyfriend, Jack, and sort of like his involvement in something that has gone down. And I found that to be just as intriguing. You know, you want to know what's going on with Kate and how she's going to get out of this situation, but then you're also like, well, what's going on this side of things? And I was worried that we weren't going to get enough with that element, and I think overall they still did a good job when it came to that. So again, I think while there isn't a ton of conflict going on in this show, the conflicts that we do get, the show does manage to, you know, do a lot with, and they get a lot of mileage out of both conflicts. And that's something that I really did appreciate, because I think, you know, going back to something like Falcon and Winter Soldier, hell, even WandaVision to an extent, I think that's something that these Disney Plus shows have kind of struggled with. They haven't always done the best job of diving as deep into some elements as they needed to, and I think overall that's something that they do a better job with here.
Well, I mean, Kate's perspective on Jack and everything. Obviously, she doesn't really like him. So like, I like how she has her point of view of that, and she's trying to like figure out what to do. And like, I like how with all the writing, I like that they really showcase what people are thinking and like their struggles and basically their perspective on everything. I don't know.
There's a great scene early on where you know, it's you see these two in like a diner, and you can see that Kate Bishop, you know, sees him as this hero of sorts, and you can see that Clint, like I said, doesn't really view himself that way. And I thought that was a really interesting way of sort of examining this character, you know, you kind of stripping away those heroic elements and looking at someone that's a lot more human, and someone that doesn't really feel like he he, like I said, should get that notoriety, should get that credit, because in reality, he doesn't really feel like he's accomplished much that's heroic in life. Yeah, obviously he's an Avenger, but he's also been Ronin. He also was, doing a lot of stuff that was harmful to a lot of people. And we really do get to tap into that in a very interesting way in the show. And I thought overall they did a good job with that here.
Oh yeah, they like really blended everything well.
Yes. And now, obviously, the other thing that I do want to talk about is, as I said, Echo as a villain. I think Disney Plus shows overall have really struggled when it comes to villains. WandaVision, we had that one guy that I was not a fan of at all, Hayward or whatever, really ended up being a big bottle of nothing. Wasn't a fan of him. Agatha, obviously, is a great villain. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I felt like couldn't figure out who their villain was. Was it, they couldn't figure out, was it Wyatt Russell's character, who I wish was the villain, or was it this boring Flag Smashers group? And then Loki, I feel like didn't necessarily have a threat until the very end. We knew someone was pulling the strings, but we didn't really get to see them until the end of the show. This is, I think, out of the four we've had, Echo is easily the best of the villains that we've seen in any of these Disney Plus shows, because, again, you feel like she has a real reason for going about things in the way that she is. There's a reason why she is going on the mission that she is. There's a reason why she is so in pursuit of both Clint and Kate, and you really do feel attached to that character as a result. And I thought they did a considerable amount of, they really did make a concerted effort to get you on board with this character. And I thought overall she ended up being one of the best parts of the show for me. I was a very big fan of her by the time the show ended.
She was amazing for a villain, and
yes,
like honestly, she's probably one of the top characters for sure. And like I said before, she's an amazing villain, like I said, and I haven't heard of her before, so she was completely new to me. And but it was just really cool to see her, and she really like vibed well and blended in, and like she did such a great job as a villain.
Oh, yeah. I overall was a very big fan of her. And then eventually when Yelena does get pulled into this, we can't really say too much of what she does or anything like that. But I do think they did handle that character quite nicely. I liked what they ended up doing with her. They kind of gave her this fun dynamic with Kate, which I wasn't fully expecting, but I thought it actually worked quite well with the tone that this show did have. And I thought overall she fit in very nicely. Like if there was any show to put Yelena in, I think it was this one. And I thought overall that she, like I said, just blended in very well with everything that was going on. So yeah, overall, I think the writing is very well done here. Getting into the cinematography, like I said, this is not a very heavy show in terms of action and things like that, but there still is a lot of cool stuff that they do. I think, there's a lot of cool action set pieces in the show. One, especially involving a car chase. I'm sure you've heard about it. It involves all of these different arrows that can do different things, and that's something I still really like. They find ways to do creative things with this show, even when it's a bit more on the simplistic side. They still find fun things to do, and I thought overall they did a really good job when it came to that. I think there were definitely some very strong action sequences here, but like I said, overall this show just feels a little bit more grounded in that way, and that's something that I really did enjoy when it came to this show. I thought they did a good job with that, and I enjoyed the cinematography a lot here. I think that and the Christmas was so well implemented in the show. We actually watched this twice because I wanted to give it another watch before I gave it a full review. And it's very awkward watching it in January when it's not the Christmas season anymore, but it really does a great job of just giving you that sort of, like I said, joyous feeling. I can definitely see this being something that people could potentially end up watching every Christmas, because I think they really do a good job of implementing that into the show very well. So I thought overall cinematography was very strong here.
Oh yeah, I thought it was great and very strong and just very creative. And there wasn't like a ton of action. It was just very like simple, but like everything they did was just really cool and very unique. And it's just
especially
very,
with the
like,
different arrows. That was really cool.
yeah, very everything is very aesthetically pleasing. And I think they did a
Yes,
great
for
job with
sure.
this. Actually, I think they actually did a really great job with the cinematography.
Yes, the score is really good. Christoph Beck has always, been a great composer, and he does a really good job of composing the score in this show. But we do have to talk about one other thing, and that is Rogers the musical. This was something
Yes.
that people saw in the trailer. They were like, "This is probably going to be some really weird, some really corny," and yeah, it is corny as fuck. But that's exactly the point. And I thought that what they did with that show, obviously, it doesn't play a huge role in the grand scheme of things, but overall I thought was a really fun sort of thing that they ended up doing, and I thought was implemented into the show very nicely. So between that and the score and also the soundtrack, which is they're constantly using all these different like Christmas songs, I thought overall was really good here. So I really did enjoy the score throughout this entire show, and the editing. So this show is 6 episodes long, similar to most Disney Plus shows, but I have to say I think out of all of the Disney Plus shows, this one or Loki, I think utilized those 6 episodes the best. And while I don't think, which we'll get to my flaws for this show in a little bit, I don't think every single element was dived into as well as it could. I think, like I said, what really does work with the show is that they do keep things relatively simplistic. They don't try to overcomplicate things too much. They don't try to introduce like all these different plot points into the show and make it feel really overly convoluted. I think overall this show did what it needed to in 6 episodes. Could they have gotten a little bit more? Yes. But I think overall, I think they utilized these 6 episodes very nicely. So I think in terms of Disney Plus shows, this is definitely one of the better shows in terms of pacing overall. I think that's something that a lot of them have struggled with, and I think this show definitely utilized it very well.
Oh yeah, I thought the score was great, and like the Christmas music was just so like very wholesome. And
Yes.
yeah, I definitely think this is something that everyone could watch every Christmas because it just makes you
Yes.
very happy and just gets you
Yes.
into the Christmas spirit and gives you that joy. And then Rogers musical, I honestly love that so much. It was
Oh,
so
yeah.
fun, and it's just so catchy, that song.
Yeah, I've been listening to Save the City a lot.
That's I think that was like a nice little touch to this show in a way.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, getting into some flaws. This show's not perfect for me. There definitely are some things that I think
No.
do overall bring it down. And I can't really get too much into it without diving into spoilers, which we will in a little bit. All I will say is that there are some things that are revealed as this show does go on that I just didn't think was particularly earned. There's one reveal, especially, it happens in the penultimate episode, and I like the reveal. I like the idea of it, but I wish it had happened a lot earlier into the show, because I think we could have gotten a little bit more out of what we ended up getting here. And I think if they would have introduced it earlier on, I think this would have been a lot more memorable, whereas it did feel a little bit shoehorned in. It's not like it wasn't something that they hinted at, because they were heavily speculating it throughout the season. It's not like they weren't, but I just think that they could have done a better job when it came to this specific reveal. And I do think that it undercut a bit in terms of the storytelling. So I don't think they did a great job with that. And I do think there are some characters here that just don't have a lot to do. The tracksuit guys, as much as I enjoy them, are kind of pointless in the show. They don't really have a lot to do here other than they're just kind of like the goofy little sidekicks. And there's a fun little gag going on with them involving Imagine Dragons. That's all I'll say. And I thought overall they were fun for what they had, but I wish there was a little bit more going on with them as characters, because as a whole, we just didn't really get a lot with them. So those are really the two things that do ultimately bring the show down for me. But with that said, we're going to dive into, were there any issues you had with this show in terms of like flaws or anything?
Kind of echoing you with those guys. They did a great job, of course.
Yeah, they're
like,
a lot of fun
with what they like had, but I did want to see a little more of them.
Yeah.
And like maybe a little more of certain characters.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't have a ton of flaws with this show, but like here and there, I'd like to see a little more about certain storylines and all. But like there wasn't there wasn't a shit ton of flaws for me with the show. But yeah,
Yeah, I think that it's definitely
just a
one
few
of the
little nitpicks.
least. Hmm?
Just a few little nitpicks here and there.
Yeah, definitely. I think overall it's definitely one of the least flawed in terms of the Disney Plus shows overall. But now I do want to dive into spoilers when it comes to this show. So the first thing I do want to talk about is I was not expecting this show to open up going all the way back to 2012 and seeing how
Yeah.
a young Kate Bishop, her family is, almost we get to see the Chewatari battle from New York, which we've seen so many times before. But we get to see that Kate and her family were almost kind of involved with it because her dad ended up dying because of it, and she also almost ended up dying, but Clint ended up kind of saving her in that way, and that's why she's always felt this connection to Hawkeye. It made a lot more sense. It really did a good job of getting you to understand that character and why she has the drive that she does to become this way, even if she doesn't fully understand what it means to be Hawkeye and the risk that that's going to put in her life. I thought overall it was a really clever setup, and I thought really did a great job of getting you on board with that character overall. So I think the opening was something I really was not expecting here, but I thought overall they did a really strong job with that.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the beginning part.
Yes.
It was very like emotional and touching, but like it really like brought more of the heart into the show.
Yeah.
And like you really get to feel a connection with Kate and everyone. So I like really liked the beginning, and
But
it
man, they
was just
did my boy Brian Darcy James dirty. They really did. They just completely axed him off in the beginning.
I
I was like,
know.
damn.
It was a special scene though, like for Kate.
Oh yeah, definitely. I thought it was a really good way of, like I said, getting you to understand that character. So when the show is going on and you can see her, how much she idolizes Hawkeye and looks up to him, you understand why she feels this
Oh
way,
yeah.
because to her, it doesn't matter. He is this hero. It doesn't matter what Clint says. It doesn't matter that Clint is constantly trying to tell her, no, I'm not this hero. I've done a lot of, fucked up things. I've hurt a lot of people. She doesn't care. At the end of the day, he's a hero. And I think that's what really latches you on to Kate as a character. She just has this optimism about her, through thick and thin. It never's really stripped away in the show. Even when he's trying to pull her out of the action, he doesn't want her to get involved with this because at the end of the day, like a lot of this doesn't involve her. And he knows that. She's just kind of getting herself, involved with it. She still wants to be along for the ride. And I thought overall, I really liked what they did with her in this show. I thought that, like I said, it really helped you understand her journey that much more. It gave you that clarity that you really did need. The next thing I do want to talk about, though, is Echo. Like I said, I talked about before how I think Maya is a really strong villain. And I think what really makes her someone that you latch onto is the third episode, which I do think is the best of this entire show, especially because of the backstory we're given when it comes to her character. I was not expecting to go quite as deep as we did. Obviously, we're going to get a little bit more into it when it comes to the Echo show and get a better exploration of her character. But I think the show did a really good job of getting you to understand her relationship with her father and how much he mattered to her, and how, he was actually, apparently, it turns out he was actually taken out by the Ronin, and now it makes a lot more sense. This is why Maya is so adamant about this mission. This is why she wants to go after the Ronin, because, the Ronin killed the person that was closest to her, and it kind of becomes, while we already have this sort of, race against the clock type of story, it's also one of those things where I think they give you that personal connection going on to Maya. This isn't just a villain that's like, oh, I'm going to take over the world. I have this, this evil plan. No, she has a legitimate reason for doing what she's doing. And so while at the same time you could say she's a villain, you also kind of do feel bad for her because of, the reason this all went down. And I thought they did a really good job when it came to her character, and like I said, what really has gotten her to this point, why she is in pursuit of the Ronin overall. And of course, knowing who the Ronin is, it creates this really great dramatic irony. And I really loved that reveal with her character. I think it was something they did a really good job with early on, and I think it very much did. It gave you that much more context into, you know, what's really going on with her.
Oh yeah, I thought that was like amazing, and just like we
Yes.
got to see more about like everything, like her story. It was just like very
Yeah.
like heart wrenching and like touching
Oh
and
yeah.
everything. But
It's
I will
probably
say,
one of the best scenes in the show. Is just that whole
yeah,
sequence of her and her father.
I do think it's one of the best moments for sure in the show. I wouldn't say it's my favorite episode. My favorite episode is definitely Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely one of the most passionate moments in the show, and it was just like a very heart-wrenching like moment and everything, and we really got to like know more about her.
Yeah, I thought overall they did a really good job when it came to everything going on. Now, of course, let's segue into Yelena a bit. We knew she was going to show up. We didn't really know when she was going to show up. In my opinion, this character showed up a bit too late into the story. I think that she should have been here by episode 3. I think we could have gotten a little bit more when it came to this character, because while they still did a really good job of giving her a lot to do in these last 2 episodes, it did to
Mm-hmm.
me kind of feel like we are trying to make up for lost time. And I wish we would
Mm-hmm.
have, you could have peppered her a bit more throughout the season. I think it would have been a little bit more narratively satisfying in that way. How did you feel about them not really introducing her until the end of episode 4? Do you think it was satisfying? Do you think they could have done more with her? What do you think?
I mean, yes, I would have loved to see more from her, but like I kind of thought they brought her in at the right time because then we really got to hear like her perspective on things. Um, and then like her interactions with Kate are like my
Oh
favorite
yeah,
thing.
that's some of the best
Love
part of
it.
the show,
I
definitely.
love it so much.
Her complaining about macaroni and things like that. It's
That
great.
was
I
so
love it.
funny.
I love the Elena character.
I love her so much,
Yeah,
and
but
like
I think
I but yeah, I thought it was like perfect when they brought her in. But yeah, of course I like to see more of her, but in my
yeah.
opinion, I think they did that was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they got more with her than the other character they wait to bring on a bit, which we'll get into. But I really like her dynamic with Kate. I think it was one of the best parts of the entire show. Something I really
Yes.
wasn't expecting, but it makes sense because these two characters are actually very similar. Both of them are very kind of like sarcastic in that way. Both of them are also they have this, they have this sort of optimism to them. But I feel like Yelena is a more sort of grown-up version of Kate, because
Yeah.
she's seen a lot more. She's been through a lot more. She's kind of had that optimism stripped away in a little bit. And I really love the scene, especially when she's talking about Clint and sort of like the, how again Kate sees him as this hero, but Yelena, it's not just about how, oh, he killed my sister, which obviously he didn't. So we don't have much of a connection to there because we know that he didn't
Mhm.
actually kill her sister. And that's something I was worried
Yes.
about initially. I didn't really want the whole thing to be, oh, you killed my sister. No, I didn't. And that's sort of back and forth. It's a little bit more than that. She knows that Hawkeye has killed a lot of innocent lives. And she knows that when he was the Ronin, he did a lot of things that were very unethical. And it's really had an impact on her. It's something that she really is not okay with. And I really liked that back and forth between her and Kate overall. I think it ended up being one of the best parts of the entire show. And like, if we can somehow get these two in something again, I don't know what we need to do, but like find a way, because like I said, I think their dynamic is one of the best parts of the entire show. And I
They
liked what
they
they
just I think they just both need their own show, or like maybe just put them into like their own
I
movie
mean, I don't
together.
really want Kate to have her own show, because this was basically like I would say like she was a co-lead pretty much. Like
I mean,
it was
yeah,
both of their shows.
that's true. Yeah. But I mean, I think actually yeah. Give Yelena her own show and
Yeah.
Kate her own movie.
Yeah. If you give Kate her own movie, I think that would definitely work. Yelena, I would definitely want to see more of, obviously, and I think they are definitely
Yes.
going to do more with those characters. And I think this is a dynamic that
I
could be
think so
really
too.
fun to explore in future projects, because I think they just work off each other very nicely overall. But I like that we also get the reveal in this show that Yelena was blipped. We kind of, had an inkling that ended up happening, but it brings this more, it brings even more, I think, of a tragedy to Natasha's sacrifice, because you realize that Natasha sacrificed herself to bring her sister back to life. And that really hits you in that way. I've heard a lot of people say throughout the years, like Black Widow shouldn't have died and things like that, and that she should have lived. But really thinking about it, I think it brings this emotional layer to the show that otherwise wouldn't be there if she was still alive. Like the idea that Yelena came back, just because her sister sacrificed herself, I think is just, there's just something so touching about that. And it really does latch you more onto the sister bond, even more so than I think we already did. You really do understand how much these two cared about each other, and how that was the first thing they were thinking of. When Yelena comes back, the first thing she's thinking is, where's my sister? And I really loved that reveal overall. So I thought they did a really strong job when it came to, Yelena's personal mission in all of this, and really understanding why she cares so much about Natasha. We already knew she cared about Natasha, but you have even more of an understanding of why she cares so much about her in that way.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. She was really passionate about finding her, and she's like, "Where is she? I want to see her." But yeah, it was just a
and
really
then, of course, she's not there, so it's like, fuck.
It's so
yeah. So I thought
it's wholesome and heart-wrenching at the same time.
Yeah, I really did. I really did love that a lot. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Clint. Something I did not dive into is the family dynamic. I thought that they touched upon this very nicely. I like the way they implemented the family into the story. They're not overbearing. It's not one of those things where they're using this against him. They understand that he has his duties, but they hope that he can come back for Christmas. But I like what does connect him to Kate is the idea that she's kind of his companion. She's going to help him through this. He starts to, miss certain Christmas traditions and things like that. I thought they did a good job with that. But then also him recounting, some of his time as the Ronin, which you can tell is stuff that he has kind of repressed. He doesn't really want to think all that much about it. He finally gets a chance to kind of do that here, and how, like I said, he doesn't see himself as a hero. He doesn't like a lot of the things that he has ended up doing. And I think, for me, the most effective scene is when he eventually does go to Natasha's grave, and he basically tells her, I know what you want me to do. I know what I have to do here. I don't really want to do it. And you can see that he's kind of been wrestling with it throughout the show. I thought overall was just really strong. So I really, like I said, loved what they ended up doing with Clint there. But I think we've gone on about that long enough, and how well they dive into that part of the show. I think the only other two things I really do want to touch upon, one is the reveal of who actually killed Armand, because obviously we get that in the first episode. We know that Armand is killed. I knew it wasn't going to be Jack, straight up. There was no way. It would have been way too obvious. I knew that they were going to lead us down a different path in some way, and I think that they did a good job. But I love the reveal that Jack is just he's just kind of this fun guy. That's his entire thing. He has a sword and he's a swordsman, but he just wants to use it for fun. He doesn't really have any sort of malicious intent. I think that's a really fun idea. I like that he ends up joining the LARPers at the end. It was a really good way of sort of misleading you, but also fitting for that character, because constantly throughout the show you can see that he seems very he's very interested in getting to know Kate. He's constantly, defending her and things like that. You think, okay, maybe he has some sort of evil agenda. No, he's just a nice guy. That's his entire character. He's a nice guy, and I thought that they played into that very well. So I really did like that reveal. But then the larger reveal that it actually turns out to be her mother who ended up killing Armand was very predictable. I will say that right off the bat. Like, when Vera Farmiga, you don't waste Vera Farmiga. If you're gonna have Vera Farmiga in something, she's not just gonna be like the concerned mom that is making sure that Kate's okay. Like, that's not gonna be her role in the show. You're definitely gonna give her more to do. So I wasn't shocked when it turned out that Eleanor was actually the one that was responsible for Armand's death. It made a lot of sense. But I won't lie, I wish we could have gotten a little bit more when it came to that, whether it was like a backstory or something like that. I think it just would have been that much more effective because we see how this affects Kate, but not really. We don't really see how this affects her in a big way because it's kind of just dealt with in a manner where she puts her mom in jail, and that's kind of it. There isn't really a lot when it comes to that specific reveal. So I think while it was a good reveal, I think it was undercut a bit, especially by what we're going to discuss here. But what did you think of the ultimate reveal that it turned out to be Eleanor and not Jack? Did you feel was as predictable as I did? Because I felt like, they kind of tell.
No, I actually didn't think it was predictable. I didn't think it was going to be Jack, though, because, like, obviously Kate's not really fond of him, but, like, he's supposed to be just, like, the nice guy who's trying to, like, be part of her life. But, yeah, I didn't think it was going to be him for sure. But her, the mom, I actually did not think it was going to be her. Well, it was kind of hard for me. It was kind of iffy. Like, I was like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? But once I saw that it was her mom, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's a very interesting storyline.
Yeah.
It's very different. And obviously I wish we could have seen more of how Kate was affected, but maybe if there's a spin-off or season 2 or a movie or something, maybe we'll see more of that.
That's definitely something they can dive into in
like
future,
they need to
really bring that character back.
They kind of need to get more into like the motive of that and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, other than that, I thought it was pretty cool, like how they did it. It's very, very unique for sure. And then obviously going back to Clint, I like how like he loves his family. He's literally trying to do this all for them so he can get back home for Christmas. But obviously he's trying to like help Kate and everything. But then I like that he brings her to his place for Christmas, which is really sweet. And that end scene just makes me like really like happy. It's just like a very joyful moment. And just his love for his family is just so like sweet.
Yes. And by the end, of course, with Yelena does, of course, end up finding out the truth that this was Natasha's choice. He tried to save her. And it's a really good moment between the two of them. I really did like the way that whole thing did end up going down when it comes to that dynamic. Although I will say, I would have liked to see a little bit. I would have liked for this to happen a little bit earlier in the show. I heard some people bring this up, and I do agree. I kind of wish that if you would have introduced Yelena early on, you can eschew this in episode 4. Just have him reveal to her that, like, no, I'm not your sister's killer. And then the last 2 episodes is her helping them out. Like, she kind of can be along with them on this ride. Taking down Echo, taking down, Kazi, taking down the other character that we're going to talk about in a little bit. I think it would have been that much more effective when it came to her character. But I still really like what they did there. I thought Florence Pugh, just amazing actress overall, always great in terms of emotion. I've always talked about this. I think she is just such a great actress in terms of facial reactions, and you can really see how much this affects her knowing that, but also getting that closure over her sister's death. There's something that's really cathartic about that, and I really did love what they ended up doing with that end reveal. I just wish we got a little bit earlier so we had something more for this character.
I mean, I think that does make sense, but I do think like how they did it was perfect, and like just like the dynamic of what they did. I mean, it could have worked early on, but I just think how they did it was just really good.
Now, what did not work for me? We'll get into it. Kingpin. Let's talk about Kingpin. So they hint throughout the show that Maya has a uncle that she she needs to be careful with how she handles things because her uncle's gonna get angry and that they need to keep her uncle out of it. And she's constantly like walking on eggshells because of her uncle. And I think we knew it was going to be Kingpin. It was pretty obvious from the second that they were referencing it. They kept bringing him up constantly. He doesn't get introduced into the show until literally the last episode. And look, I love Vincent D'Onofrio. I do. It's amazing to see him back in this role. I know you haven't seen Daredevil, but he's one of the best. Like in terms of villains, I think he legitimately is one of the best out there. I think it's one of the best castings of all time. He is just iconic in that role. And anything they can do, similar to, spoilers, Charlie Cox in Spider-Man No Way Home, the fact we were able to get him again, anything you can do with that character, I'm on board with. But what I want to see with that character and what I liked about him in Daredevil is how fleshed out of a character he was, how much you understood his motivations to the point where you did forget at points that he is the villain. You were so on board with him as a character. And I think in this show, I just didn't really get that from him. I felt like his relationship with Maya, especially, I just did not feel earned. Nothing about it felt earned emotionally. I didn't really, it felt so, unfortunately, like the scene in episode 6 where she's going to her uncle and you can see that he cares for her and she's kind of like, shrugging him off, doesn't really want much to do with him. It just was kind of emotionally hollow for me. I'm not going to lie, because I just didn't really feel like we got enough with that dynamic. I didn't really feel like that specific relationship was touched upon in the way that it needed to be. When it comes to Maya and her father and her wanting to go after the Ronin, you understand that because we get the context we need to really get us there. You understand what drives her as a character. And when she realizes that it's Clint, she's that much more adamant about, we got to kill him. But then when he eventually reveals to her, what ended up happening and like convinces her to not kill him in that scene, it's a really great moment for that character. But what really undercuts it is the Kingpin, because he's essentially been the one that's like kind of pulling the strings in a sense when he's facing off against Kate, especially. I understand why you choose to have Clint facing off against Yelena and Kate facing off against Kingpin. I think that's a really good choice because they both kind of been going on their individual journeys, with Kate trying to figure out who is in pursuit of Armand. Turns out that Kingpin was, Eleanor was working for Kingpin all along. And then Clint trying to, repair this wound from his past when it comes to Yelena thinking that he killed Natasha, which obviously he didn't. And you can understand why they come to those logical conclusions. But what I think does ultimately hurt it is, again, I just don't really feel like the Kingpin as a whole has a lot to do here. You see that he's, very brute. You see that he's someone that, when Kate is trying to fight him off, he is, it's impossible to fight him off. I mean, he beats her almost to, well, not beats her to a pulp, but like he kicks her very far. He is just so much more powerful in the show. He's not nearly as human as he was in Daredevil, so he's a lot more of like a superhuman in this show, and I'm fine with all of that. I just wish we got a lot more of Kingpin, and I think what really could have saved it for me is, they recently revealed that there were going to be some flashbacks with Kingpin and Maya. I wish we got that throughout the show. I really do. I think if we had those flashbacks throughout the show, getting us more into that dynamic, the moment where Maya does essentially kill him, which he's not dead. Like, let's just say that right now. There's no way he's dead. You're not going to bring Vincent D'Onofrio back in episode 6 and then just kill him off at the end. That's not so. There's no possible way that he's dead here. We didn't see him die. I don't buy that he's dead at all. He's definitely going to come back.
I kind of think that, in her spin-off show, I can see them having more of like a relationship and like.
Well, I've seen people hint that. Yeah, I've also seen people hint that could also be a secret Daredevil show, because they bring back Charlie Cox. Yeah, I could definitely see them maybe doing something like that, but I don't think that will fully, change the fact that I think Kingpin was kind of wasted in the show. I think they could have done a lot more with him, and like I said, the stuff I liked, it's mainly because of how much I love Vincent D'Onofrio. It's not really because of what they do with him. Like, you get the sense that he's intimidating. You get the sense that he's very powerful in that way. But aside from that, I mean, his relationship with Maya, just completely unexplored, not really dived into in the way that I wanted. And I think that did ultimately hurt his inclusion in the show for me. So yeah, I wanted a lot more from this character. I wish they could have dived a lot deeper into his relationship with Maya, because that's something we didn't see in Daredevil. You know, obviously Daredevil, we saw a lot of his relation with Vanessa. We saw relations with other people, but we didn't see this dynamic, and they had an opportunity to do something different, to dive deeper into it, and they just didn't take it. And I think that did ultimately just, again, render a lot of his scenes as emotionally hollow for me. You didn't care about his relation with Maya because we just didn't get enough with it. So yeah, that is the one thing that I am overall very unsatisfied with in this show. I think while this finale, I will agree with many, this is definitely one of the stronger finales we've gotten of any Disney Plus show.
Oh, yeah.
Disney Plus is not great with finales. We know this. They're not great with wrapping things up a lot of the time. It's not just with Marvel. The High School Musical finale last year was very weak. Mandalorian hasn't always had like the best finales. But I think that when it comes to Hawkeye, I think this was a really great finale. I think just what undercuts it for me is the inclusion of Kingpin. I wish he was introduced a lot earlier via flashbacks. I think that would have been more effective, but ultimately they just, I don't think did enough with him. But I've talked a lot about what did you think of his character overall and what they ended up doing with him?
Well, obviously, like you said, I haven't seen Daredevil yet, but I will get into that. It's in my watch list. But yeah, I thought he did, from what we saw, he did a great job. But yeah, I definitely would like to see a little more, but maybe in her series, like they'll actually get more into their story and their life and flashbacks and such. But like from what we saw, of course, it was great. But yeah. But other than that, the finale was a really strong one. I liked how they blended everything and their dynamics, and I just liked the whole storyline of the finale, and just
it was very narratively satisfying, especially when he like burns the Ronin suit and things like that. It's a good moment for that character. So overall, I think
it was a very powerful finale.
Yeah, overall, I think this is a very strong series for sure. It does a good job of taking what we already know about Hawkeye and really diving a lot deeper into it, but then also introducing this new dynamic with Kate Bishop, who is just such a fun character to watch. Hailee Steinfeld is just magical as that character. I love the dynamic between these two. It's very fun to watch. There are a lot of funny moments throughout the show, which, by the way, having the entirety of Save the City at the end was also just such a treat. I love that they ended up.
Yes, I love that so much.
I know people didn't like it because they wanted more of a, like, you know, tease for a post credit, but I mean, I thought it was a cute little thing that they did at the end, so I don't really have an issue with that. But I thought they combined the comedic elements and the more emotional moments of the show very nicely. It dives deeper into the sins of Clint's past and what he really did as the Ronin and how it's affected a lot of people, but also diving deep into what makes him a hero and why Kate especially sees him that way. I think they dive into that very well here. It's a lot more simplistic than other Marvel shows, and I do think that ultimately does help it. It's got a very strong villain in Echo, who is easily one of my new favorite villains within the MCU overall, and I'm very excited to see what else they do with that character moving forward. And while I don't think everything they did was 100% earned, I don't think everything they did went as deep as I wanted to, particularly a reveal that I think they could have done a little bit more with. I think overall, when really looking at the Disney Plus shows, I think this is easily one of the stronger ones that we've gotten. So overall, I am going to give Hawkeye potentially season 1. I don't know if it's a season 1, but for right now, it's the only season. I am going to go ahead and give it a B+.
All right. This one, definitely one of the better Marvel shows. I mean, I wouldn't give it like higher than Loki. I sometimes it goes back and forth. Like sometimes I'll think it's a little better than WandaVision. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, no, WandaVision's a bit better. But
yeah,
honestly, watching it back, I like it even more, like the second time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, There's a lot of comedic moments, there's a lot of heart, there's a lot of emotional things, there's just an amazing dynamic with each character, all that stuff. And I just really love this show a lot, and I would rewatch it. Maybe I will rewatch it at Christmas time. Who knows? But honestly, I first thought it was a B plus, like my first time watching. But honestly, with this rewatch, I'm gonna give it an A minus.
All right. So other than that, guys, we're finally done here with this review. It's been a long time coming. I don't know why it took us so fucking long to get this done, but I'm glad that we were finally able to close the book on this review. But before we do wrap things up, Allie, tell everyone where they can find you if they haven't watched the other videos or maybe a podcast that we do. So go right ahead.
All right. Well, follow me on Twitter, AllieCatXO, and also that's my letterbox as well. If you want to like read any of my reviews or just my ratings, whatever, and or hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. Just like message me, and I'll give you my info. And also stay tuned for more conversation with Kelly, our podcast. We're gonna be doing a Q&A soon, and we're also going to. And then when the cast reveal for Celebrity Big Brother 3 is out, we're going to do a cast assessment and a draft for that. And obviously, we're going to be covering that season.
Yes, we also will be, I'll announce this now because we already started filming it. So as you guys know, I've done videos for like those like fall TV pilots before where I watch a bunch of them, pretty much just for my own misery because a lot of them don't turn out to be very good. But I've been watching all of them with Allie, and I thought, you know what? She wants to be on my channel more. She enjoys doing these videos. So I thought that it'd be a cool idea for us to do we're going to be doing another one for mid-season shows, and we're going to be doing that together. So you can definitely look forward to that as well. I'm very excited for that video. We've already recorded a bunch of stuff. I will be honest, it's probably not going to be here until like March at the latest because mid-season shows are crazy in terms of pilots. They're always happening. True. So it's not quite as there's not as much of a guarantee as like what we're going to be watching because they can announce things like, like a couple weeks from now when we have the show coming out in March. So yeah, we'll see when that does get done. But whenever that does come out, I'm very excited to release that video because I think it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. But other than that, guys, for this review, hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, sorry that this review took so long, but we wanted to have the right moment to finally rewatch this show. And I'm glad that we were able to finally do that. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Of course, always comment down below. Let us know what you guys thought of this show overall. Left your thoughts in it. I wish that I would have reviewed it individually, but I just did not really have the time to do so. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in our next video, and we will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Bye.